This is Michael Popak, and it must be time for Legal AF After Dark. Judge Merchan, the New York judge presiding over Donald Trump's criminal case that starts on the 15th of April, thought enough of Donald Trump's outlandish behavior that he gagged him. Gagged him in advance of attacking certain people, lawyers and judges and staff and witnesses and future jurors and the like. But it wasn't enough for Donald Trump. Donald Trump said, "Oh, I can attack the daughter of the judge. Why not? Let's do it." But the Manhattan DA's office thought that crossed the line and had violated the gag order. Donald Trump's lawyers think it didn't and defended Donald Trump's attacks on the daughter of Judge Merchan. It's all going to be heard by Judge Merchan. We break it all down for you on the Legal AF podcast. Take a listen.
So, Popak, here we are at yet another trial. We've gone through these civil cases against Donald Trump where gag orders have need to be imposed, anonymous juries. Donald Trump's behavior, unlike anything you or I have ever seen, ever practicing law, again, some of the most, we're talking about the spectrum of despicable criminal defendants to white collar to I've never seen anything. The behavior, both the dangerousness, but also just the kind of immaturity and the baby. I've never seen anything like this ever. In fact, as you go through law school and, you were at Duke, I was at Georgetown. Not at the same time, in case people were wondering. um, but just an unfathomable thing to me as a student of the law, as a practitioner, that this could be the case. Break it down for us.
Yeah, the fact that we have to talk about it, as you said earlier, is really unsavory, but we have to. And that's why we founded Legal AF, to do just that. Look, I said on a hot take, and I might have said it midweek with Karen, who's, of course, formerly of that office, the Manhattan DA, that as soon as Donald Trump gets the gag order, and he's been gagged a number of times, he got gagged by Judge Engoron. He got gagged by Judge Engoron twice. He got gagged by Judge Merchan, this very judge, at the beginning, at the arraignment stage. He's been gagged by Judge McAfee in Georgia. He was gagged by Judge Chutkin in the DC election interference case. The only case he really hasn't been gagged, of course, is Judge Cannon down in Mar-a-Lago. So he knows what to do, right? It's like he has a toolbox. He pulls out the gag order. He sits down with his lawyers. He has a huddle session, probably at Mar-a-Lago, where they're doing round the clock, apparently, day and night fundraisers for himself and for MAGA. That's all that Mar-a-Lago apparently is doing right now. And there he's like, "Oh, let's see the order. Okay, now can I bash the daughter?" And then his lawyers, sheepishly or not, say, "Yes, you can bash the daughter." "Can I bash the wife?" Yes, you can bash the wife. Can I bash the grandmother?" "Yeah, you can bash the grandmother." "Can I go after the judge himself?" "Well, technically, the way this gag order is currently written, the judge is fair game." "Okay." "And can I go after Alvin Bragg, the prosecutor? Another minority person who hates white people. Can I do that?" "Yes, you can do that as well." "Okay, great. I know what to do." And that's what happens. And then then the judges struggle, because they are legitimate participants in the criminal justice system that care about the criminal justice system and ethics and their job. And that's the mismatch here. We have an out of control, rogue, former president, current criminal defendant, who is not concerned with the administration of criminal justice and doesn't care until he's stopped. And so they have to come up with a surgical gag order that meets the contours of our First Amendment, whether he's a political candidate or not. And because he's a political candidate, meets the contours of that, meets the contours of the precedent that it's already been established about the scope of gag orders in a case against a criminal defendant who's, yes, doesn't have the obligation, actually has the right not to take the stand. And yet some people curiously might be thinking, well, this is counterintuitive. He gets to say whatever he darn pleases extrajudicially outside the courtroom, but he doesn't have to actually stand and deliver under oath inside the courtroom. And that the answer to that is yes, it's an anomaly, but it's an anomaly of our constitutional system's making. So so the judges are really concerned with creating with clear boundaries and margins this defensible constitutional gag order on him, which is why he doesn't go to the unlimited extremes. And even Judge Chutkin, for instance, when she had a very similar gag order to the one that Judge Merchan just issued, that we're talking a lot about here. In fact, Merchan, of course, had the benefit of seeing the gag order that Judge Chutkin issued. Hers was even pared back just slightly on the edges by her bosses at the Court of Appeals, the DC Court of Appeals, and Judge Merchan had the benefit of that teaching and learning in fashioning his gag order as well. And so it's not a mistake. It wasn't a typo that the judge left out and family members. He purposely carved himself out of the gag order. In other words, he can go after the judge. He carved out Alvin Bragg, the DA, but not the staff, not the attorneys that work for him, like Josh Steinglass and the other attorneys that are going to be prosecuting the case on a day-to-day basis. They're not fair game. He didn't get into he did say staff. He said witnesses. He said, as you read, Ben, he said, don't go after prospective jurors or do things. There's a little bit of a catch-all, do things that will undermine the justice system. But he's got a tough skin, and he's a judge, and he felt the guy has the right to bash me, and he has the right to bash Alvin Bragg if he wants to, the elected district attorney that's gone after him. But now we've seen how Donald Trump has tested the limits by going after what I refer to as the soft underbelly. Even the mafia doesn't go after civilians. Even the mafia doesn't go after like the family members. Donald Trump would be thrown out of the mafia. Let me just put it that way. I know Michael Cohen likes to talk about him as being an organized crime boss, but he goes even beyond what they would be willing to do in order to get his way, and to mercilessly bash this poor adult daughter of Judge Merchan that's just a professional. She's not working for Joe Biden. Okay. She's working for a PR firm in the political space that does mainly Democratic clients, not including Joe Biden. And she works on some of those accounts. But that's it. And that's why when I really gave a lot of credit, and you called it out first, you did a hot take on it very, very early on, that you thought that the Donald Trump's bashing of, and I don't want to mention her name again, bashing of the judge's daughter, just the way he bashed the principal law clerk for Judge Engoron and others. It's always women. It's always this misogynist attack on women who he hopes then won't fire back at him with a defamation case. But I think she has a case for that. You called it out and said, why isn't this a violation? It may not be a technical violation, but it's in the spirit of the violation of the gag order. And Judge and Alvin Bragg thought the same thing and filed this emergency application on a letter brief on Thursday night that got docketed on Friday, in which he said, look, you got to make a clarification here, Judge, because by leaving out family members expressly, Donald Trump has gone after them, and that's going to have a chilling effect on jurors and witnesses who are going to have to worry. My family didn't sign up for this. I don't want to testify. I don't want to be a juror. I don't want my grandmother attacked by Donald Trump because of something she put on social media, or my wife or my child. And so they want the judge to address that. They've also gone as far as to say that Donald Trump's conduct does violate the gag order, is contumacious, term of art meaning it's in contempt, and he should be given a cease and desist by the judge. The response, which came in 1.5 pages from Todd Blanche's office with Susan Necklace, who you mentioned earlier, and I mentioned earlier, listed there as well, basically defended Donald Trump's bashing the daughter not because it's right, but because it's not technically part of the gag order. Yep, we look, Judge. He can go after your daughter. I mean, the fact that they're even able to put the print to paper and write that in a way they've never done in the history of their careers as defense lawyers, to defend a person's depraved attack of a judge's daughter, in order to do what? They say, well, a First Amendment core political campaign speech. How could attacking the daughter, who's not involved in the criminal justice system, who's not the judge, how is that core political campaign speech? Because she happens to work in the world of politics. and some of her firm's clients happen to be Democrats, that then makes it he needs to go after them in order to run for office and for reelection. I can't even get it out with a straight face because it doesn't pass the straight face test, and they can't even pass the straight face test. And then they argue, Ben, in their 2 pages, that not only is attacking Judge Merchan's daughter protected campaign speech, um, but they can't even say that she's supporting Joe Biden. They, at the best, they say she's a family member referenced in the letter is actively supporting adversarial campaign speech by President Trump's political opponents. Okay, that's word salad and nonsense and gobbledygook. That's a legal term for nothing. She does not campaign, and even if she did, who cares? Ever since the after the 18th century, women are no longer considered chattel owned by their husbands or by their fathers. Okay. Women can have a career. So can children. And they can have a career that has nothing to do with what's going on inside the wood paneling of the courtroom, presided over by their father in this case, even if it were true. Adding on to the fact, of course, that everything he said about Merchan's daughter is a lie, that somebody had co opted her social media account and did the same thing to her, which somebody had done. And he keeps falling. I don't want to say he falls for the bait because I think he knows that it's not true, but he doesn't care. That, same thing, as you said, Judge Engoron's wife, somebody got into her social media account or created a fake one. And you're like, oh, they want me in prison. Look at all this great stuff. So, Blanche then ends the letter with, "We need more time to brief this, Your Honor. We have." And then again, here we go with the word salad. Just random phrases out loud that they think apply. Prior restraint, constitutional concept. First of all, prior restraint doesn't apply as a constitutional doctrine here. It has to do with when a government stops speech in writing or otherwise. That's not what's happening here. This is a gag order that's imposed by a criminal judge who's administrating the criminal court justice system. And then First Amendment speech, you don't have a First Amendment right. And he's been told this over and over again by courts of appeal and the United States Supreme Court. He does not have a First Amendment right to violate and undermine the integrity of the criminal justice system in the name of the First Amendment. Just as he doesn't have a First Amendment right to commit crimes, even though part of the crimes involve speech. That doesn't render it a First Amendment defense. So I think, let me just wrap it up this way. I thought the letter brief written by the Josh Steinglass for the DA's office was very well taken. I think the opposition letter is not, and really demonstrates that they have no ability to defend Donald Trump on this issue. I'm not sure. I don't think that, I want to hear your opinion. I don't think that Merchan is going to issue an order requiring further full briefing. I think he rejects this out. I think he issues either through a hearing that he calls quickly, or he amends his order on his own to include the family members. But I got to tell you, and I want to hear your opinion, it was not an accident that the judge left out family members, and it was not an accident that he left himself out. But what do you think he does now, having have it been briefed by the two parties?
I think he largely ignores it, which we can be like, well, then Trump's going to get away with it. I think Justice Merchan recognizes that Donald Trump is doing this to delay the trial date. That's what Trump is trying to do. And so if you look at, first take a look at the DA's letter where the DA goes, the people believe that the March 26th order is properly read to protect family members of the court. I mean, that's just what it says. And then you look at what Todd Blanche, Trump's lawyer's letter in response is, and says, the express terms of the gag order do not apply in the matter claimed by the people, which they seem to acknowledge by suggesting the need to avoid any doubt. So there they are, just like justifying the right to attack the judge's daughter. But when you go deeper, that second portion that's highlighted there, pull that back up. It talks about, well, if we want to deal with the issue that's now being raised about attacking your daughter, we need to brief it. And such briefing would address, let's throw in a random Latin word to sound smart, inter alia, among other things, unnecessary word, the constitutional problem attendant with any additional improper restrictions on protected campaign speech, which would implicate First Amendment rights that belong to not only President Trump, but also the public. So what they're basically daring Justice Merchan to do here is, look, if you do this, if you want to amend it, we want to go to briefing, and then we're going to try to go to the appellate division, and then we may take it to the highest court in New York, which is called the Court of Appeals. Then we may try to do this or that to try to delay this case. That's what Trump's trying to do here. I think Justice Merchan realizes that. And I think that's why Merchan's just going to be careful in what he does so as not to have any delay, any delays here of the April 15th trial date come hell or high water. That's locked in. And the final point I want to talk about on this topic before moving on to the next topic about Trump's lawyers being disbarred on the West Coast and likely going to have some serious ramifications, at least on the East Coast, with Jeff Clark, who's technically not Trump's lawyer, but who's claiming he is Trump's lawyer in attorney-client privilege, is like, what are we even talking about here? Like it shocks me that this even has to be a conversation. I guess perhaps if we were dealing with like a real kind of unadjusted, kind of petulant, bully, third grade person, and no offense to them, but like, what are we talking about here? Like, we're adults. Like, there is this numbing of the judiciary, numbing of the media, numbing of our systems that Donald Trump has kind of ripped the fabric. What are we talking? Who behaves like this? Like, at a most basic level, like this behavior, it's not a Democratic or a Republican thing. This behavior, attacking family members of judges, there's never a time where that should be justified, period, full stop, by anyone. You could use the word inter alia and all of these things. We're the United States of America. When President Biden says that, that's what he's channeling. This is the United States of America. What are we talking about here? Anyway.
All right. That's a show we do. We call it Legal AF for a reason. We do it Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on video right here on this YouTube channel for the MeidasTouch Network. And then we do it on audio podcast platforms of your choice. If you already knew about Legal AF and you're catching this clip because you either didn't see the show this past week or, for other reasons, we thank you for being part of our audience. Take the clip. Take that hot take. Send it off to friends and family and say, hey, that Legal AF show that I like so much, here's an example of it, and maybe they'll join our audience. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, it's possible, or who I am, also likely. I'm Michael Popak. That was Legal AF, and we invite you to join our podcast Wednesdays, Saturdays, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on this YouTube channel. You're already here. Don't change the dial. You're here already. Help them get to 3 million free subscribers. That's better. And then on audio podcast platforms of your choice. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popak reporting.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. The film Against All Enemies, which I co-produced with Ben Meiselas and this network, has won awards around the world for its up-close portrayal of America's insurrectionist movement. It premieres in the U.S. on March 29th on Amazon and Apple TV. Go to againstalllenemiesfilm.com or click the link below. But don't just watch Against All Enemies. Tell your friends about it. It's one more way to hold accountable those who threaten our democracy. Thanks, Meidas Mighty. Let's use our power well.